Hello, hello, my dear listeners. Welcome to another episode of Speak English with Luna, the place where your English doesn't just grow, it transforms. I am so happy you are here today. Today, we have a very special, very deep topic: how to be yourself in a foreign language. Do you ever feel like a different person when you speak English? Do you feel like your real personality is hidden behind the words? Well, today we are going to fix that. But pay attention, this episode is a challenge. We are starting now with very clear, easy English, but as the minutes go by, the level will rise. We will go from B1 to B2, and by the end, we will reach C1 territory. Can you stay with us until the very end? Can you follow the evolution of the language? I promise you, if you listen to the whole 15 minutes, your brain will feel stronger and your heart will feel more confident. Today, I am joined by the incredible Dr. Arthur Sterling. Let's begin this journey. Welcome to the show, Dr. Sterling. I am so incredibly happy to have you here in our virtual studio today. Our listeners have been asking for this topic for a long time. You know, many students tell me they feel like actors when they speak English. They feel like they're playing a role, but not really being themselves. Is that something you see often in your research?
It is an absolute pleasure to be here, Luna. Thank you for the warm invitation. To answer your question, yes, it is an incredibly common experience. In the field of linguistic psychology, we often observe what people describe as a split personality when switching languages. When you aren't fully fluent, your brain is so preoccupied with grammar and vocabulary that your natural wit, your humor, and your unique personality often get left behind.
Exactly. That is exactly how I felt when I started. I felt like a baby version of myself. But today, you're going to help us bridge that gap, right?
Precisely. We're going to discuss how to move past the mechanics and find the emotional resonance in your English. It's a journey from speaking a language to living in a language.
Dr. Sterling, I want to start with a feeling that I know many of our listeners have. When I speak Portuguese, my native language, I am funny, I am fast, and I am very confident. But when I speak English, I feel like I am walking in shoes that are 2 sizes too small. I feel limited. I feel like a smaller version of myself. Why does this happen to us?
That is a profound metaphor, Luna. The small shoes perfectly describe the restrictive nature of a developing vocabulary. You see, when we speak our mother tongue, we have an intuitive grasp of nuance. We don't just choose words, we choose colors and textures of meaning without thinking. When we transition to a second language, especially at an intermediate level, our brain is under a massive cognitive load. Essentially, your brain is working so hard on the mechanics, the grammar, the conjugations, the correct preposition, that it simply doesn't have the bandwidth left to process your personality, your humor, or your sarcasm. You aren't smaller in English, Luna. You are just filtered. Your true self is behind a very thick wall of mental processing.
A filtered version of myself. I like that. It makes me feel less like I am failing and more like I am just in a process. But Dr. Sterling, how do we break down that wall? How do we go from just surviving a conversation to actually expressing our soul?
It begins with a shift in perspective. Most learners believe that fluency is the destination. They think, once I know 10,000 words, I will finally be myself. But that is a fallacy. Being yourself in a foreign language is not about the quantity of words. It is about the emotional resonance of the words you already have. Let me tell you a story about a former student of mine. Her name was Sophia, a brilliant cardiovascular surgeon from Italy. In her operating room in Rome, she was a leader, commanding, precise, and witty. But when she moved to Boston to work at a prestigious hospital, she became a shadow. She was terrified of making a mistake. She spoke in short, robotic sentences. She felt like her colleagues saw her as less intelligent because her English was simple. One day, I told her, Sophia, stop trying to be the Italian Sophia in English. That person doesn't exist here yet. You need to build a new Sophia who uses the simplicity of English as a tool for clarity, not as a prison.
That is so powerful. A tool for clarity, not a prison. But how did she do it? How did she find her voice again?
She started by embracing vulnerability. Instead of hiding her struggle, she began to name it. She would say to her colleagues, I have a complex thought about this procedure, but my English is still catching up to my brain. Please bear with me as I find the right way to explain this. By doing that, she removed the performance pressure. When you stop trying to sound perfect, you create the mental space to be authentic. And here is where we reach a more advanced concept, Luna. We have to talk about the linguistic self. There's a famous theory, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which suggests that the language we speak influences the way we perceive the world. When you speak English, you aren't just translating Portuguese thoughts, you're actually navigating a different cultural and logical framework. English is often more direct, more economical than Romance languages. To be yourself in English, you have to find which parts of your personality align with the spirit of the English language.
I understand that, but it is so hard when it comes to humor. Dr. Sterling, I love making people laugh, but in English, my jokes always feel late or heavy. Is it possible to be funny in a language that isn't yours?
Humor, the final frontier of language learning. Humor relies on timing and cultural subtext. To be funny in English, you cannot simply translate a joke from your culture. You have to understand the undercurrents of English humor, irony, playword, and self-deprecation. But here is the secret, Luna. You don't need to be a stand-up comedian. Authenticity in a foreign language often comes from precision. When you find the exact word that describes how you feel, not just happy, but elated or content, you're projecting your true self. The more precise you are, the more visible you become. Now, as we move into more complex territory, Luna, we must consider the juxtaposition of identities. As you reach a B2 or C1 level, you start to realize that you aren't the same person in English as you are in your native tongue. And that's okay. In fact, it's a gift. Many polyglots report that they feel more assertive in English because the language is structured that way, or perhaps more romantic in French. You're not losing your identity, Luna. You are expanding it. You're adding a new layer to who you are. The English-speaking Luna might be more concise, more observant, or perhaps even more adventurous than the Portuguese-speaking Luna. Embracing this new self instead of fighting to keep the old self is the key to true eloquence.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. I always thought I was less, but you're saying I'm actually more. I'm adding a new layer to my soul. That's so beautiful. But Dr. Sterling, for my listeners who are at a B2 level and want to reach that C1 eloquence, what is the most important thing they should do to bridge that final gap?
At that stage, it's about immersion of the psyche. You must stop consuming language and start interrogating it. When you hear a native speaker use an idiom, don't just memorize the definition. Ask yourself, what is the vibe of this phrase? Is it formal? Is it cynical? Would I use this to talk to my boss or my best friend? You must develop an ear for the music of the language. English has a specific stress-timed rhythm. When you master the cadence, the rise and fall of the sentences, you stop sounding like a student and start sounding like a speaker. Also, you must embrace complexity in your thoughts. Don't avoid difficult topics because you lack the words. Instead, find the words because the topic is important to you. If you're passionate about climate change or art or philosophy, learn the high-level vocabulary for those specific areas.
Your passion will act as a bridge carrying your personality across the linguistic gap. Ultimately, being yourself in a foreign language is an act of courage. It's the courage to be misunderstood, the courage to be imperfect, and the courage to keep talking until the new you finally feels at home. It's not a sprint, Luna. It's a lifelong habitation. You're building a house in a new land. In the beginning, it's just a tent. It's cold and uncomfortable. But with every new word, every corrected mistake, you're adding a brick, a window, a fireplace. Eventually, you look around and realize, I am home.
Dr. Sterling, that was beautiful. Truly. I think I just had a light bulb moment. I'm not losing myself. I'm building a home for my soul in a new language. Wow, my brain is buzzing after that conversation. Dr. Sterling, you used some truly high-level vocabulary. Listeners, did you catch those words? Don't worry if you didn't. That's why we're here. Let's take a look at 7 key terms that will make you sound incredibly sophisticated. First, Dr. Sterling mentioned cognitive load. This refers to the total amount of mental effort being used in your working memory. For example, I find it hard to be funny in English because the cognitive load of checking my grammar is too high. Next, he used the word bandwidth. Usually, this is about internet speed, but in a psychological context, it means your mental capacity to handle a task. For example, I'm sorry, I don't have the mental bandwidth to discuss the new project right now. I'm exhausted. Then we heard the word fallacy. A fallacy is a mistaken belief or a failure in reasoning. For example, the idea that you must be 100% perfect to be respected is a common fallacy among language learners. Number 4 is emotional resonance. This describes the power of a word or story to evoke a strong feeling or a shared memory. For example, her speech had a lot of emotional resonance because she spoke about her personal struggles. The 5th word is a favorite of intellectuals, juxtaposition. This means putting 2 things side by side to highlight their differences. For example, the juxtaposition of her calm voice and her angry words was very confusing. Number 6 is undercurrents. These are hidden emotions or influences that aren't directly expressed but are still felt. For example, there were strong undercurrents of tension during the business meeting, even though everyone was smiling. And finally, habitation. This is the act of living in or occupying a place. Dr. Sterling said learning English is a lifelong habitation. For example, after 10 years in London, his habitation of the English culture was complete. Practice these words this week. Try to use at least one in an email or a conversation. You will sound so professional. We have talked so much today about finding your new self, haven't we? It is a beautiful, sometimes scary, but always rewarding journey. Now, I have a special challenge for you, my amazing community. I want you to take a moment and think, who is the English-speaking you? Is she more direct? Is he more observant? Maybe your English self is actually braver than your native self because you take risks every single day just by opening your mouth to speak. Here's your mission. Go to our Instagram or leave a comment on this episode. Tell me one personality trait that you only show when you speak English. Are you more polite? More logical? More adventurous? Let's share our English identities and support each other in this growth. Remember, you aren't just learning grammar, you are discovering a new dimension of your soul. Dr. Sterling, thank you so much for this profound journey today. I truly feel like I have more bandwidth to be myself already. Your insights have been absolutely transformative for me, and I'm sure for our listeners as well.
It was an absolute pleasure, Luna. My final thought for the listeners is this. Do not fear the gap between who you are in your native tongue and who you are in English. That gap is where the magic happens. Remember, the goal isn't to be a perfect speaker, it is to be an authentic one.
An authentic speaker. I love that. Listeners, if you enjoyed this climb from B1 to C1, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps our community grow. Until next time, keep speaking, keep growing, and most importantly, keep being yourself. Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.